Hi, Rob with Shop Prop Realty. We're going to talk about title insurance real quick because anytime you're buying a property or selling a property, there's going to be title insurance usually involved, even if it's a cash transaction where the lender isn't involved. A lender obviously is going to require that you get title insurance. But even if a lender isn't involved, often people that are purchasing a property with cash will still want to have title insurance. And if you don't want to purchase title insurance, let's say you're buying a cash transaction, and you'll still be able to access something called preliminary title, which is a good thing to get at least used to. So first thing obviously you're going to have is the name of the title company that is going to be providing the title insurance. You're going to have the buyers here, you're going to have the sellers here, the property in question. As you go through the title, you're going to see what type of title insurance it is. Okay. You're going to obviously see the amount of the proposed title insurance. Usually it's the purchase price of the property and who the title commitment at this point is. So this is actually the owners of that property right now. As you go through it, you'll see what the requirements are. Okay. You'll see to get the title insurance. You'll see what the exceptions are. This means that this is what the title insurance doesn't cover. So for example, any defect, lien, encumbrance, adverse claim. So in this situation, and in most situations, there's not a survey on the property, at least in most states. Texas is one that is unique to that. But in most states, you're not doing a survey on the property. That's not saying you shouldn't, because if there's something where you're buying let's say a plat, or you're buying a vacant land where there's not clearly defined boundaries, you might want to get a survey as well. But in this situation, boundary lines are clearly defined, not really necessary to get a survey at this point. So there's no survey on the property, so obviously it doesn't insure against that. Anything that is in the following things, right? Easement claims, some things that are not showing in the public records, right? So to go through that, as you come down into the rest of the title insurance, you'll see the lien on the property. This is obviously excise tax and taxes are going to be liens on the property. Even if they're paid, they're still going to show up as liens, because they're going to be things that are going to have to be paid at closing and or credited. If the seller already paid for the taxes ahead of time, obviously that would be a credit. Here's the deed of trust. So this is what the mortgage is on this particular property by the current sellers. This is the amount of the loan when it was taken out, November 2015, and the recording information. So any of these recording, in most states, you can search these things on the county websites where they're actually recorded. So if you want to dig into them deeper, you can take a look at that. According to, and continue to move on, this is kind of an important spot. So terms, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Let's say you're concerned with the HOA, or you're concerned with the CC&Rs. Remember, just because a property isn't in a HOA, it's not a condo, it's not a townhome, doesn't mean it's not going to have CC&Rs that might limit what you can do with that property. So if you want to know what that is, you're going to look for this, terms, covenants, and conditions. You're going to want to read through them and make sure. Let's say I'm buying a property and I'm thinking about doing a second story. I look around the property, there's only single family or single stories. I might want to review those CC&Rs. As we go through it, what you'll see easements involved. Obviously, most properties have easements on them, especially when it comes to utilities, right? The ability for the utility company to access that property, to get readings and things like that. This is, for example, a side sewer easement. It says it's 6 feet. It's along the line as instructed. That means that you can't build in this area. There's a sewer line going down that particular property. Usually it's put in the setback, so it's not a big deal. But if you saw a sewer line running down let's say the middle of your property, might be a problem, right? You can't build, or you'd have to move the sewer. Could be something that could be expensive to do. So as you go through it, often too, I'll tell you that there's usually often links in the title report so that you can just click on them and then view, for example, the CC&Rs and so forth. As you go through it, this is the finishing, this is informational notes, so no big deal. I did want to mention something regarding this deed of trust. This is a good thing to take a look at if let's say you're buying a property and you're putting down a big earnest money, especially if you're releasing that earnest money to the seller or something prior to closing. Let's say this amount here was close to or even over the amount that you're paying, right? That would be a big risk. You'd want to at least evaluate and say, what's the seller owe on this particular property, especially if I'm releasing that earnest money to the seller prior to closing. Anyhow, hope that helps.